Hello, I said I was going to make a video about talking about how I was diagnosed with complex PTSD and sort of what that meant for me and how I feel like this is affecting my life. So I'm going to try to make this pretty short, but I say that every time and then the video ends up being like 30 minutes, so no promises, but here we go. So, basically it started when I just started to realize that a lot of the difficulties I was having, they're not inherent to. So I have an autism diagnosis for anyone who is watching this who didn't know that. I'm diagnosed with autism, but depending on who you're talking to or who's talking to me, it's kind of hard to tell that I have it. I just seem like someone who's really shy and doesn't like people, which is true. I mean, both those things are true, but I guess I don't really have the stereotypical presentation of autism, although I'm sure people with a lot of knowledge could tell. So, but the problems that I was facing were things that were not inherent to autism at all. Like, they're things that are common with people who are diagnosed with autism, but they're not inherent. So, like, addiction, maladaptive daydreaming, just like wanting to sort of dissociate all the time, like not wanting to be in reality. I'm getting this goddamn storage error, but I just cleaned out my phone. Okay, give me one sec. Alright, back in business. Anyway, I was saying that I just in general kind of want to be like dissociated from reality because I feel like reality is too painful to enjoy or want to be in. So, like, last year when I was like on my computer all the time, like commenting on live streams and stuff, it was because I didn't want to like live in my real life because I was so ashamed of myself and I didn't want to present myself to other people that way. And I still have that train of thought to an extent, but one, I guess I'm sort of forcing myself to go outside more and like actually spend time with my friends more. But two, I think my self-esteem is starting to be a little bit better, which is a good thing. So, but these are not things that are just like neurologically wired into me. Like, it's not, I wasn't born hating myself, and I wasn't born like being so embarrassed of myself that I had to like fake everything about me. It was because of the way I was treated when I was really young. So that led me to explore about just trauma in general and how it can affect people. And that led me to discovering the diagnosis of C-PTSD. And by diagnosis, I just mean like the existence of the disorder, not that I got diagnosed with it right after I found out about it. But anyway, actually, it was this really like, it was someone like unqualified, someone who I wouldn't really take their word on things. It was this YouTube channel that was actually the way I first heard about it. I had heard like the name at times because I know a lot about borderline personality disorder because my sister has it, and that disorder can be very similar to C-PTSD. But I found this other YouTube channel was called like Crappy Childhood Fairy or something like that. And she gets a lot of criticism from people who are actually diagnosed with C-PTSD because I think she kind of acts like anyone who's had any kind of trauma has C-PTSD. Also, she calls it childhood PTSD, which is really weird because you can get it, like, you can technically develop it in adulthood if you were like a I don't know, like a prisoner of war or something like that. But it's just like, it's the hubris of sort of calling herself like the fairy of people with crappy childhoods, and then like, just, I don't know, she's doing a little bit too much, in my opinion, especially being completely unlicensed. But I still thought that some of her videos were a good source of information because, like, she did at least, like, list the symptoms of C-PTSD correctly, and it resonated with me a lot. So then I read this book called C-PTSD From Surviving to Thriving by Pete Walker, who is this therapist who, he didn't coin the term C-PTSD, but he specialized in it, and he was one of the few therapists at the time that actually specialized in C-PTSD and successfully got rid of it or reduced its presence in people. Especially, like, back then it wasn't really recognized very well as a diagnosis. But, so, I read that book, and I remember a few things that really stuck out to me. So, one was, like, so I'll briefly explain. So Pete Walker's theory is that CPTSD, or like trauma responses, like any human response to threat, psychologically could be broken down into fight or flight, which people know about. I think that's talked about in biology too often. So, but I'll just briefly overview. So, like, fight response is to be mean to other people. Flight is not necessarily like directly running away. Pete Walker's definition of the flight response is retreating into things like personal projects, or being a workaholic, or like just doing something else to sort of distract your body or your mind from the threat or the perceived threat. So those are the two, like, common ones. But then I think he coined these two new ones that I feel like really resonate with me. So the first one is the fawn response, which is basically when someone sort of abandons themselves, they sort of like people please. It's basically people pleasing. They don't act in accordance with what they want, they act according to what other people might want. So they might like act like a different person depending on who they're talking to, which I can really resonate with. But I don't think the fawn response is my primary response. My primary response, in my opinion, is actually called freeze. So freeze response is basically like dissociating, retreating into fantasy, like doing things like maladaptive daydreaming. So like just like daydreaming all day and not thinking, like not doing anything, or drugs, like sedative type drugs, like weed and alcohol, which is like all I do. Or benzos. I did a lot of benzos too back in the day, and by the day I mean like probably a couple months ago. But anyway, people with the freeze response do these things a lot. It's basically trying to get out of reality completely, like get as far away from yourself as possible because you don't like yourself, or you really don't like the situation that you're in. So that really strongly, I actually read, like, Pete Walker has a website, I think it's literally called petewalker.com, and one of the articles was about he calls them the 4 Fs, the 4 responses people can have to sort of cope with their lives and like past trauma. And as soon as I read the freeze response, it was like someone was like reading my mind or something. So I was like, okay, like there might be something up with this. Like there might be some truth to this regarding me. So then I actually read his book, C-PTSD From Surviving to Thriving. So in the book, he said something like most or pretty much everyone who has C-PTSD, they felt like no one liked them when they were kids, and they didn't feel like they could rely on anyone, which really, yeah, I mean, that was totally my experience. I literally didn't have any friends for the longest time, and then I finally started to learn how to like make a fake personality to have friends, but I didn't feel connected to them because like I was faking everything. So but anyway, I mean, I'm not saying this unsubstantiated. It's not just because I didn't have friends. There was a lot of abuse, really, when I was growing up, but I won't go into detail, but it wasn't horrific abuse. It was like mild to moderate stuff. And I didn't have any really like positive relationships or positive experiences that would sort of like counteract or go against the negative things that happened to me. So like my dad could be abusive. My sister definitely was abusive, like all the time. And my mom she doesn't really have very good emotional resources. So sometimes she wasn't the most effective either. Like I used to, I wasn't ever very honest with her about things because she would just say some kind of really judgmental response and not be understanding. But I don't think that she was purposely trying to be like neglectful, but and I'm not even like really mad at her for it. It's just that I didn't have anyone that I felt like I could be honest with ever. And I guess I still don't really. I mean, I am literally the most honest, I guess, in therapy and then in like these videos, which is sad, but that doesn't mean that I don't enjoy spending time with my friends. It's just that I fake a lot of things around them. But anyway, another thing in the book was that people with C-PTSD feel a lot of shame, and they, like, even people who are not primarily like fawn response people, they go through self-abandonment. Self-abandonment is really common, and it's basically like molding yourself after what you think people want from you rather than what you actually are. And just creating an entire fake personality, which is exactly what I did. And it's very common in autism, but I still did it. And CPTSD is a pretty common diagnosis for people with autism because our nervous systems are so sensitive. So if we had even like mild trauma, it can produce a pretty severe case of CPTSD. I don't feel like my case is severe. Actually, when I got diagnosed, I was on like the milder end of it, but I'll get to that soon. So there were a lot of things in the book that really resonated with me, and I apologize that I don't have more examples, but like the whole first like couple chapters of the book, it was like, wow, this is me. I can't believe it. So at the same time, I started really like not making much progress towards my goals. Like I was being sober less and less, and I wasn't doing very well at work, and my relationships with other people were not going so well either. And it kind of culminated in me getting really drunk, and I think I actually made a video, but I didn't post it. But I was just really drunk, ranting about how, like, I hated my life, and I didn't, like, the point is, I don't think that the therapy that I was going through with the autism specialist that I see now, I don't think that it was helping anymore. So I did, like, the next time we had a session, I literally was just like, I need something else, and, like, I need to figure out what it is. And then she recommended EMDR. So I did some research about EMDR, and it seemed to be a pretty good fit. I also talked about C-PTSD with her. I think I had been talking about it for a little while, but I was like, I probably have this. She's only ever had one client with it, or who was diagnosed with it, because she doesn't diagnose it herself. She doesn't know much about it. So anyway, I literally, like, the next day, I looked up EMDR therapists. I found one who specialized in LGBT and autism who did EMDR. So I was like, okay, like, let's see if this person's available. They were, and I had an EMDR session with them, like, the week after. So, then I got diagnosed with C-PTSD pretty quickly. So, like, this new therapy, so, like, okay, let me explain EMDR very quickly. It stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, I think. And it's basically, the main way that people do it is with their eyes, but you can do it other ways too. So you do bilateral stimulation, which involves basically stimulating both sides of your body, either by, like, making a bunch of rapid eye movements, so, like, kind of like mimicking REM, like rapid eye movement sleep, where your eyes move from left to right. And the theory is that, like, you process a lot of information during REM sleep, and it sort of moves from the sort of active memory part of your brain to being just a memory. But trauma stays in your, like, active memory, and it stays in your body. And it controls a lot about your body. So EMDR, the eye movements are meant to stop that. They're meant to, like, bring the trauma into your sort of memory bank so that it doesn't affect you as much. It's just sort of like an experience that you had rather than a driver of all of your behavior. So you can do the eye movements, or you can do this EMDR therapist that works with me. We've been doing, like, tapping. So what I mean is, like, there's this thing called the butterfly hug, where you, like, basically hug your shoulders, like, cross your arms, hug your shoulders, and then, like, tap. Like, tap your left shoulder, then your right shoulder, like, over and over. Or you can use your thighs or whatever, like, it's tapping. So it's still bilateral stimulation, but not using your eyes. So I guess it's not, like, true EMDR, but who cares, because it works. It's very weird that it works. Like, you would think that that's some, like, bullshit, like, magic mumbo-jumbo that some quack made up, but it's not. Like, it's been scientifically proven to work. So it's funny how, like, something so simple can be the greatest tool to fix something as complex as trauma. It's amazing, but I mean, I'll take it, because that's a lot more simple than whatever I thought I had to do. I didn't know what I could do to fix myself. But anyway, so that's the explanation of EMDR. So then, like, so this EMDR therapist had this huge intake paperwork. Like, you were supposed to write, like, an essay for, like, every question, and I did. So I gave him a lot of information, And in the intake paperwork, I pretty much explained a lot of my trauma history. And as soon as I got into the first session, he was like, yeah, you definitely have enough to, like, have C-PTSD. He wasn't saying that I had it, but then he gave me this PTSD assessment where that's how, I guess, like, insurance companies verify that people have PTSD, like just regular PTSD. So like complex PTSD is just, I mean, there are a lot of differences, but it's from like ongoing inescapable trauma, and we felt like it was traumatic, and it like it lasted for a really long period of time, like maybe like most of our lives, which is why it's so common in like childhood to develop it. But he gave me that assessment, the PTSD assessment, and from my results, he said that the cutoff for PTSD was like 32, and I got like a 45 or something. So he basically said, like, yeah, you fall under the level that means that you have PTSD. And then he said, because of the long withstanding nature of it, that it likely, or like it is C-PTSD. So I got that out of the way pretty quickly. But I was actually kind of happy that I got diagnosed with it, because that means that I can actually fix it. My thinking before was that, like, I had autism and all of these problems were just part of autism because I was too sensitive. It's not true. There are people on the spectrum who, while they are more sensitive, they're not like going from like 0 to 1,000, like raging. Not that I like outwardly rage, but my inner emotions are really sensitive, and I seem like really, or I like, I'm, I, I'm pretty like unstable on the inside, I guess is basically what I'm trying to say. But like there are people on the spectrum who are not like that, and who are healthy, have lots of friends, have like, their lives are pretty much normal. Actually, a lot of people, like, there used to be this diagnosis like called Asperger syndrome. I think the majority of people with that, by the time they're like in their 30s, they're pretty much just normal. But I was like, well, like, I have autism, so I guess I'm just gonna be like, I'm gonna just have no real friends and have no, like, I don't know, like, I'm just gonna be a train wreck for the rest of my life. But I don't know, like, that's not true. Because I have like this other diagnosis that can be treated, and a lot of my behavior is trauma driven. I thought that from the beginning, but I think, I don't know. Like, my first therapist said that. He said, like, all of my behavior is like 100% trauma driven. He said that autism like didn't affect anything, which I think was a little bit too extreme. But my second therapist was like, well, like, this is probably mostly autism. Like, she didn't really talk much about trauma. So now, like, I have this third therapist who's in the middle, which I think is a good spot. But anyway, like, I guess it was kind of validating to get that diagnosis, because I kept thinking, like, well, my life wasn't bad enough to have such a, like, serious mental health disorder. But, I mean, honestly, like, another part of my mind, which is the part that's correct, thinks that, yeah, it was bad enough. Like, I was suicidal when I was a child for years. So clearly something wasn't right. So then, oh, and another reason that I was happy was because, like, the fix, or not really a fix, but like, that means EMDR will be pretty effective for me, and like trauma therapy, because I've never had it before. My therapy has always been like, my first therapy was psychodynamic therapy, which helped, but it didn't solve everything. And my second therapy was just like general autism therapy, which was mostly like CBT, which also helped a lot. I wouldn't be able to make these videos if it weren't for my second therapy, because my thoughts were just too scattered at the time. And help, like my health too. Me improving my health has helped, but my second therapy really helps too. So, that's why I'm actually glad that I got diagnosed with it, because there's a pretty high like remission rate too. I mean, people can go into remission pretty quickly. The trauma therapist that I'm seeing actually specializes in autism too, so he said that a lot of people that come into his practice, they come in with much higher scores than me, even like 60, which is like severe PTSD, and then within like a year, they're down to being below the threshold and they no longer qualify for a diagnosis. With C-PTSD, that's not so cut and dry like that, but their scores still go down. So I'm actually excited for this like new chapter of my life, it feels like. Especially because I'm also taking Manjaro and losing a lot of weight, so it's like, I feel like this is like, I don't know, like, I don't want to say my like final stages of healing, but it's like everything I did before kind of built up to this sort of like, this like new era where I can finally like get most of my issues fixed. I feel like I can fix most of my issues, really. Because, I was a super trainer before, like, I don't know, 2019, but I still have issues. Like, I don't have that many friends, and I don't have that many hobbies. Like, I have a couple that I do sometimes, but I'm not very fulfilled. And, like, it feels like no one wants to be around me, but I know why. It's because I'm fake. Like, like, I'm seeing a guy right now, and I do like him, but, like, I don't like a lot of things about him. And I don't know, like, I feel like I have to be fake around him because I don't like a lot about him. But that doesn't mean that I don't like spending time with him, but maybe, I don't know, like, maybe I just want to spend time with anyone because I'm, like, desperate for attention or something. Not attention, just, like, someone to spend time with, because, I see my friends, like, once a month. Like, it's not like I'm hanging out with them, like, every few seconds. I'm not. So, I guess the prospect of having a close relationship at all was just really good, and, but, like, there's a lot of stuff I don't like about him. Like, he says these bad things about minorities, and I'm a minority. Like, what the fuck? Like, he was like, oh yeah, like, the last guy I dated was a black guy, and he had that black attitude, you know? Like, I don't like that. Okay, maybe it is true, like, some black people are angry, whatever, like, there's reasons for that. Like, I feel like he didn't have, like, a nuanced understanding. Like, and to me, he doesn't seem very nuanced at all. But this isn't a video with this guy. It's just, like, I feel like I should just, like, not date him. I should just, like, I wouldn't mind being his friend. Like, there's a lot about him that's really cool. Like, he knows so much about so many things, and I wish that, because he's on a spectrum, like, 100%. He hasn't said it to me, but, like, he is. Like, I can tell, and he has a lot of special interests in things like technology and, I don't know, like, home improvement and stuff like that. Like, things that I wish I was good at. And so I really admire that about him. So, like, I would totally be friends with him. Like, I wish that, like, I don't know, I wish that we could still, like, be in each other's lives, but I think that he wants to just completely stop talking to me, which really sucks. But, like, I think the reason that he doesn't want to talk to me is because I act fake. And because I'm, like, sick all the time and, like, not feeling good all the time. And then, like, I have difficulty talking when I don't feel good. So it's just, like, off-putting. Like, why would someone want to be with someone like that? Like, he's constantly doing stuff. Like, constantly. To me, it's weird. Like, he's constantly out of the house. Like, I think that so, like, I was talking with the flight response earlier. I think that he has, like, a major case of a flight response. He's, like, a workaholic. Like, he's always working. Not, like, he has, like, 5 jobs or, like, 6 jobs or something. Like, it's ridiculous. So, like, there's something up there. And I'm not like that. I'm the opposite. So, already there's a pretty major incompatibility. But I still admire it in him because I'm the opposite. Like, I would want to be, like, more like him. Not fully, but you know what I mean. Anyway, my point is that a lot of people don't like me because of the way that I am, because of C-PTSD, not because of autism, because it seems like once autistic people get in an environment where, like, they thrive, like, in their special interests or something like that, it seems like they're honestly, like, happier than other people. But I don't have that. Like, my quote-unquote special interests are all, like, things that I do by myself because, I don't know, it just sort of happened that way, but also I think because I'm so averse to people that I developed interests that don't involve them. Except, you know, psychology is basically about people, but I don't have to actually talk to people for that. I mean, it helps, but I can also just, like, watch videos or, like, observe people's behavior, and I get the same kind of satisfaction. Anyway, hopefully this made sense. I don't know, I feel like I was really rambling this time, but that's basically what all my videos are. Maybe I should actually, like, make a script or something, like, to make the video really coherent, next time. Maybe more people would watch it, or, I don't know. Like, when I actually talk in real life, well, I try not to talk much. Like, I would never talk this much in real life, ever, except to, like, someone who also is really into psychology or into these other things. Or, like, a therapist, I guess. But maybe I should make a script. Because when, like, in real life, like, for, like, meetings and stuff like that, I always make notes and sort of script it so that I sound like a normal person, because otherwise I'm, like, going in 8,000 different directions when I talk. So, yeah. Thanks for listening. If you listened this far, you must have the patience of a saint, and I wish I had your patience. But, yeah. So, thank you. And I guess I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye. I'm gonna end this before this gets any more awkward.